Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to be with you. It is Tuesday, August 18th, and another beautiful day in paradise. Was out this morning. When I first started at 4 o'clock, it was 82 degrees, but by 6 o'clock this morning, it was 79. It was beautiful, a little cool breeze, but I think it's going to be a hot one today, so be careful out there. I think on my phone it said there was a 2-day heat warning here in southern Arizona, so if you go outside in the afternoon to late afternoon, make sure that you stay safe because it can be really dangerous out there. I was talking to somebody recently that said that they were out in the heat and they kind of started to get a headache. And I mean, that's classic beginnings of heat stroke, right? So if you do outside, make sure you cover up to protect your body a little bit and drink plenty of water and, don't get heat stroke. That can be a very dangerous thing. But that's one of the things you have to be careful about when you live in southern Arizona. Because while there's a lot of beauty and while the mornings are beautiful, the days can be particularly when the sun is shining down on you, it can be pretty brutal. So anyway, let's see. Birthdays today. We have no birthdays today. And I got started a little bit late this morning because I was just curious. Something was forwarded over to me, and it shows kind of what the coronavirus is doing across the country and everything. But I just want to show you real quickly one little coronavirus thing, and this is from Johns Hopkins, and it shows the number of new confirmed cases per day by state. And if you was about July 1st, June 29th or something like that. And if the peak was in July 1st, and if you look at hospitalizations, I'm not going to pull it up, but hospitalizations peaked at about 2 weeks after that, so about around July 15th. And then if you look at both of those things, what we're seeing at least is a decline in the number of cases, the number of hospitalizations, and ultimately the number of deaths. Of course, number of deaths can be going down because we're treating it better. We're understanding, or we, not me, but it's my understanding that there's two phases to this disease. The first phase is like the infection. And if you have no comorbidities and you're fairly healthy, or you're for some reason not genetically inclined to have a really bad case of this disease, then it goes through you rather quickly with no severe, it just goes through. You might have a headache, a couple things. But what happens is so that's the early stage. The body's fighting it by itself, and if it overcomes it, then you're okay. But if the body then does what's called the cytokine storm, then it will try to fight the infection with this overdose of things that goes on in your body, and the body actually reacts to this whole cytokine storm. And so they would go into the hospital, they would intubate you and put you on a ventilator, but that actually wasn't as successful as they hoped. But now they have a whole bunch of other treatments that they're giving people, because when you get into that second stage, it's not a lung disease, it's more of a blood disease. And so you fight it with blood treatments and infusions and steroids and things like that. And so they've gotten a lot better at treating it if you get into that second phase. And again, you might get the first phase and not even know it. You might get the first phase and have a mild, couple things. But if you get into the second phase, apparently it's pretty bad. And so it's just they're learning all sorts of things about this disease. It is really fascinating. I mean, they will do movies about this. They will do, this will be a case study in epidemiology. What did the governments do correct? What did the governments do incorrect? How do you prepare for the next one? Because this one, we'll all be gone by the next one if it happens about every 100 years. But whoever's in 100 years from now should be prepared for the one that's after that. So anyway, that's that. Let's see, what else is new and exciting in the world? Yeah, it just seems like things are opening up again, and we at Christ Within Veil are we're probably not too far away from the state of Arizona. I think if you look at these numbers and these graphs that we're showing, I don't think it's going to be too long before the governor says, "Okay, we can release restrictions a little bit more," and that would be a good thing. And then our building is under construction, and it'll be finished when it's finished. And I hope it's finished sooner than later. But it is a little frustrating, I will tell you, just because partly it's just because construction in southern Arizona is still going very strongly. But the other thing is that there is still coronavirus, and so people are doing different things because of that. So it has slowed down a little bit, but it's hard to know what the slowdown's due to. I mean, it could be for a number of different reasons. I don't know. But we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. We're going to go into the study of Genesis, because I really want to spend a little bit more time on this whole thing about Jacob and Esau. Because as I've mentioned previously, a couple things. One is Jacob is the guy. He is the second born son, but he grabbed the heel of his brother because he wanted to go out first. He's a very ambitious guy, and his mother wants him to be ambitious. He's obviously extremely conniving, cunning, smart, sneaky, I guess you could say, which is a family trait, because Isaac was sneaky and grandfather Abraham was sneaky. So it doesn't go out of the family too bad. I mean, it stays in the family. And so that's Jacob. Esau loves to go out and hunt. That's all he cares about, is being outside. He doesn't care about his birthright. He doesn't care about his blessing. Well, he does care about the blessing. But he's a different person. And he's not the one that should be leading the family. Even though he's got lots of gifts, Rebecca has determined he's probably not the one that should lead the family. Now, and we may get into that a little bit, because anybody can lead. You just have to know what your strengths and your weaknesses are. And then you have to play to your strengths, and you have to overcome your weaknesses. And that's something that every parent should instill upon their children. It's what every grandparent should still instill upon their grandchildren. Whatever gifts God has given you, all he asks you to do, or all we can do, is leverage those gifts to the best of our ability and do the work that he's called us to do. And that includes, if he's called you to leadership, then leverage your leadership gifts and the skills that he's given you, and supplement with the gifts that he hasn't given you. And you can supplement that with people, or you can supplement that with training to try to overcome those gifts. I mean, there's lots of things you can do. And the older you get, I think you learn, your weaknesses and your strengths, and you get more comfortable with them. And then, a really wise person would really spend some time trying to overcome their weaknesses, and, trying to understand why they have weaknesses, and why do they always run this way when problems arise, and maybe they should be running this way. I think I mentioned before, there's a test called a Strength Finder test, and it looks at your personality in a whole bunch of different areas, and it describes who you are. And one of the things they do is say, are you an infielder or an outfielder? When you see a problem, a fly ball or whatever, when you see a problem, do you run to the problem to attack it, or do you kind of run away from the problem and see kind of where the problem's going? And so each of us have a natural tendency on that sort of thing. Some of us, no matter what the problem is, we run to it, even if it's a problem that doesn't need to be run to. Like, you can put that on the back burner. And other people, they always, look to see where that problem's going, and they never run to the problem. But sometimes there are problems you have to run to. So part of growing up is learning which problems do you run to, and which problems you kind of let, take over, or not take over, but kind of just let them sit there for a while, because you don't always have to attack every problem as soon as it arises. So, and I'm an outfielder, by the way. That's how God created me. My natural tendency is to just kind of look and see where the problem's going. But I know in my life that there are times when you have to attack a problem head on. You can't let it wait. You have to. You basically have to you run towards the problem and try to deal with it. And if that's not your natural tendency, then you either have to surround yourself with people that are like that, or you have to work on your own giftedness and see if you can increase your ability to perform in those areas. And that's part of growing up. And that's what we're going to see in Jacob and Esau today, actually, is that it's obvious that Jacob is the conniving, cunning, he's got lots of leadership skills, but he's not the hunter-gatherer. He doesn't have the, and so Rebecca for sure thinks that Jacob should be the leader and not Esau. And so she's arranged this whole thing about Jacob getting the blessing and not Esau. And that's where we kind of left it off yesterday, is that Rebecca tells Jacob that Esau is going to get the blessing. He's out hunting game. When he comes back, he's going to get the blessing. So she does this ruse to dress up Jacob to look like Esau, cooks a nice meal. Jacob goes into his father Isaac and gives him the meal. Isaac, whether or not he's in or not on this thing, gives his blessing to his son Jacob, who he thinks is Esau. This is really confusing. So Jacob goes in, but Isaac thinks it's Esau, gives Esau's blessing to Jacob, and now Jacob has the blessing. Now, this could go in a whole bunch of different ways. At this point, well, let's finish, because on yesterday, Esau comes back, gives his father the game, and say, "Hey, I'm ready for the blessing." He goes, "Well, who did I just bless?" And Esau said, "Oh, that's my brother Jacob, that lying, conniving thief." And he says, "Well, Dad, give me a blessing." And now this is the interesting part, because what blessing would Isaac give to his son Esau? I would think that you would give your son another blessing, and we looked at the blessing. So the blessing of Jacob was blessed in three areas. It was blessed that he would have honor. It was blessed that he would be surrounded by forces that would curse those who curse and bless those who curse, and that he would be innocent, because now he's a lord and he's now in control of the tribe. And when you're the king or the lord or whatever, you can't be anything but innocent because you control everything. So, he has honor, he has innocence, and he has power. And that was the blessing that Isaac gave his son Jacob. So you would think, okay, well, Esau's blessing is going to be equally good, but just not as good, or, what is Esau's blessing? And that's the interesting thing in this whole story. I mean, it really is. I mean, if you think about it, that's like, when we look at this blessing that Isaac gives Esau, you're going to scratch your head and you're going to say, what was that all about? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So let's just look at that, because now we can get into this blessing that Isaac gives to Esau. So I'm just going to read in verse 38. It's the bottom of this, so just take a look at it. The very last sentence. Esau said to his father, "Do you only have one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." And then Esau wept aloud. And so, I mean, just think of the he wept. Now think about this. Have you ever known somebody who is a, this big strapping, goes outside, hunts game all day? This is my older brother. These people, they don't weep very often. I'm just telling you that. Of course, it could be stoicism. I mean, it could be culturally, but usually, if you're the hunter-gatherer, you are so in control of your body that you can be in control of your emotions, I suppose. And anyway, but this is Esau just weeping aloud. "Give me a blessing, give me a blessing." You can imagine poor Isaac. What do I do? I gave the blessing I thought I was giving to Esau, I gave to Jacob. And now is he going to get Jacob's blessing? And was Jacob's blessing modified because now there's a ruse and he knows it's a ruse? Or, where's this going? Well, let's just take a look at the blessing and see what happened, because this blessing may shock you. So this is verse 39, Genesis. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness and away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword and you will serve your brother, but when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck." I don't know what to say. I mean, when he gave the blessing to Jacob, he's like, may the earth produce richness for you. May you have the dew from heaven. May you have honor and power and innocence and everything. May the world be opened up to you. It's all yours. I give you everything. May God just bless you with everything that he has. And then he comes here and he says, well, your your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of the heaven above. You will live by the sword and you will serve your brother. Now, serving your brother it had to be that way. Because if the blessing now goes to Jacob, and there can only be one number one son that's taking the blessing and basically running now this tribe, there can only be one of them. And now your brother has it, so you're going to serve your brother. But he gives this one little hope of promise. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck. When you grow restless, you will throw his yoke off your neck. So that is a little bit of a hope or a promise to Esau. So just generally speaking, he's got two boys. And together, both boys they're complementary to each other. What Isaac fails to have is the ability to go outside into the wilderness and hunt game and enjoy it like Esau does, right? He's not the strapping young Gaston from Beauty and the Beast that, goes out and hunts game and puts it, the heads up all on the wall and that sort of thing. He's more of an intellectual, stays home in the tent, be part of the community and all that sort of thing. But Jacob could use some Esau characteristics in his life, and Esau could use some Jacob characteristics in his life. I mean, it's like you got Isaac, who has all of this, and he has two boys, and it's like they were split. It's like one part of it went over here and one part of it went over here, and together they'd be pretty good together, but only one of them can rule. And so it's Jacob that's going to rule, and Esau's now going to serve his brother. And that's just the way it is. And like I said, I don't know if this is solely Rebekah or if this is Rebekah and Isaac together, because as I look at this blessing, it's not much of a blessing at all. I mean, it's just, I look at this blessing and I would be so disappointed if my father told me these things, that, I'm going to serve your brother and the earth's not going to produce for me and I'm going to live by the sword and I'm going to be restless and all that. But it's what it is, and it's brutal honesty. I mean, it really is brutal honesty, that now that Jacob is the firstborn, you're going to serve Jacob. This is kind of how your life's going to go. And I think that, so I just want to say this. We each have weaknesses and strengths. And part of life is identifying, we always go, like I'll tell you where my strength is that any problem that's put in my lap, I immediately go up into my head and I think intellectually, okay, how can I solve this problem? Is there a solution to this problem? And if I do this, and if I do this, and I this, and I do permutations, that's just the way I'm wired, is I do that. But that's a blessing and a curse, because all of your strengths are a blessing and a curse, right? The curse is that sometimes the problem, there's not enough time to deal with the problem. And so you have to make a decision to take your best guess. And for a person like me that thinks there's a perfect solution, and the idea to go in a direction that's not the perfect direction just rips me up. And so I want to spend a little time trying to find out, is this even the right kind of hemisphere to be going into? But there are times when you don't even have that. There are times when you basically have to go boom, 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 and live and deal with the consequences, whatever they are. And so I've learned over time, and I'm still learning, right? Because I'm still, a sinful human being. I'm still trying to discover who I am and how God created me. Is that, part of understanding is, when should I actually not go intellectual, but just go, just run and attack the problem with brute force, or, just go with your gut. and those sort of things. And that's just part of the journey of life that we all have. Because, if you go with your gut and it's wrong, now you look weak, you look stupid, and you're throwing people in a direction that now you have to change force and go them in another direction. And people don't like to change. People never like change. I mean, that's one thing head people know is, that's the reason why you kind of go in the right direction, because then you don't have to modify it, right? You can go in that direction for a long time and people get comfortable with that direction. But maybe people shouldn't always be comfortable, because change is always inevitable. As a matter of fact, there was a person from the 1500s that said this. This is Saint Teresa of Avila. She said, "Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing upset you. Everything changes. God alone is unchanging. With patience, all things are possible. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone is enough." Man, just take that in. Don't let things disturb you. Don't let things upset you. Everything changes. And this is from the 1500s. I mean, we look back in the 1500s and we're like, nothing changed in the 1500s. Everything changes. Even in the 1500s, the only thing that is unchangeable is God. And with patience, all things are possible. With patience, everything's possible. Whoever has God lacks nothing, because God alone is enough. Man, if you can live that way in your life, if you can understand what Saint Teresa of Avila from the 1550s understood about life, then you are doing very, very well, because that truly is the case. The only thing that is unchanging in this world is God. Everything else changes. We're in the middle of this pandemic, and the world is never going to look the same coming out of this. And some of you are frightened by that. And there's no reason to be frightened by that, because change is inevitable, and change can be good. I mean, God created us in the Garden of Eden with 2 commands. The first command was this, to be fruitful and multiply. The second command is this, to subdue the earth. And to subdue the earth means that we have to understand the earth. We have to understand that the earth changes, that our lives change, society changes. We grow older, we get more understanding. All that stuff happens, and change is always going to happen. And there are people that feel comfortable with change, there are people that don't feel comfortable with change. But the fact is, change is always happening. And part of the thing that we're seeing now is that changes that we knew were coming. We knew we were going to go to a digital world. It's just happening now a lot quicker than we ever thought it was. And we're going to have to retool and figure out what's the best of the old world and keep those things, and what's the best of the new world and grab a hold of them and hang on as tight as we can. Because I look back, the change that I've had in my 50 years, and I think that the next 50 years is going to be exponentially even more change than the last 50 years. I mean, for sure. So change is inevitable, and it's coming at us rapid. Oh my goodness, does it come at us rapid? So rapid, in fact, that I don't think, people who have careers, like, the old saying, you graduate, and you get your first job and you stay in that career for the rest of your life. That's probably not even true anymore. They're saying now that people have 3 or 4 different careers now in their life. They have, look at me. I'm on my 2nd career or my 3rd career. I don't know what I'm on. And I mean, that was unheard of 50 years ago. But now people have to learn to retool, to pivot on a dime, and to say, okay, this one's over, but I'm going to go to that one. But the good news is that it's easier to pivot on a dime and switch and move into the next thing. There's training available. There's education available. There's so many resources available to be able to do that. And we are so adaptable as human beings that it's wonderful. I don't know how I got off onto this. I am so sorry, because anyway, let's get back to Genesis 27. This blessing, though, is just it's not much of a blessing, is what I want to say. It is. I would be, if I was Esau, I would be so disappointed in this thing. But Esau's got to learn about his weaknesses, and Jacob has to learn about his weaknesses. What happens after this? I mean, how does Esau take this? I mean, how do you think Esau took this? Not well. And remember, he's a guy of the field and likes to kill things, right? I mean, his favorite thing in life is to go out with his bow and arrow and shoot animals running away from him. And now his brother just stole his birthright. You don't think he's going to take this sitting down, do you? We know exactly what is going through Esau's mind, and it is not pretty. So I just want to finish this little part of it, and because we want to finish this tomorrow, but let's just look. So that's the blessing from verse 39 to 40. Now let's see what happens. If I can get to the next. Here we go. Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. And he said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near, and then I will kill my brother Jacob." So he's not going to kill him right now. He's going to mourn for his father because that's what he does. But then when the father's mourned, when that's all done, Jacob, you're toast. You better figure this one out. Now, verse 42, when Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said. So this is obviously, he's saying this to his friends, right? She sent for her younger son Jacob, and she said to him, "Your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself by killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran." This is Uncle Laban. "Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. And when your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Then Rebekah said to Isaac, "I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living." So, and that's the end of chapter 27. So basically now Rebekah has told Jacob, "Listen, don't stay here. Just go to Uncle Laban for a little bit, my brother. He's going to teach you things that your father never taught you. Isaac should have helped you, but now you're going to go work for Laban, and you're going to learn some things from him. He's going to help you compensate for some of your weaknesses. So go and do this. Be a part of Laban's tribe for a while. And while you're there, why don't you get a wife? Because the wives, in that tribe are very beautiful. I'm from this, area. I'm very beautiful. So go find a wife. Go grow up a little bit in areas that you need to grow up. And when you finish that, you're gonna come back." And so Rebekah puts this whole thing on. Now, the one thing I want to tell you is that Isaac does not come back for a long time. As a matter of fact, this is the last time that Rebekah sees her son, Jacob. Jacob doesn't come back for a long time. She hatches this plan, puts him to be king and all that, sends him to Uncle Laban. She's thinking of maybe a week or two or, 6 months. It's like this coronavirus. How much longer can it go, right? But it lasts so long that she never sees her son Jacob again. And while Jacob is with Uncle Laban, he does grow up. He learns things that he would have never learned if he just stayed at home. Esau, now because Jacob is gone, is going to learn things that he never had to learn when Jacob was there. By splitting apart these two boys and letting them grow apart individually. Remember, they're twins. Have you ever known twins? I mean, twins, they're interconnected with each other. One twin affects the other twin. I mean, it's a strange relationship, twins. But when they go apart and they're no longer able to have that twin with them, they have to grow in ways that they've never had to grow before. And now Jacob and Esau are being split apart. Esau is staying with the Isaac tribe. Jacob is going with the Labanite tribe, I guess you could say, Uncle Laban. And they're both going to grow from this. And it's good growth for both of them, because sometimes you have to make a dramatic change in your life to grow in areas that you need to grow in. And maybe that was Rebekah's plan all along. Maybe she kind of knew that she'd never see her son Jacob again. I don't think she did. because she said, just go and stay with him for a while until your brother, cools off, and then you can come back. But what she didn't realize is that Laban's going to love having Jacob as a slave practically, and of course he'll probably fall in love, and we'll see. We'll have to get into that part of the story. But this is what happens in life. There's always unintended consequences to the decisions we make, and Rebekah's unintended consequence is that the son that she loves, that she set up to be now in charge of this tribe, she never sees him again. And that's unfortunate. But maybe it's fortunate. I mean, he's going to have to grow. He's going to have to grow into a man without his mom being there, and that's part of growing up too. So I think we'll leave this blessing and curse in this part of the story, because the next part of the story is really, really interesting, and I think I kind of said what I wanted to say, is that there are times when we have to embrace change and do things that are uncomfortable for us, because it helps us grow in areas that we need to grow in. And God I don't care what age you are or what life experiences you have, there are times in life when God is forcing you to deal with things that are change, that are going to help, that you can either lean into God with the change and grow from it, and your roots get stronger and you learn more about yourself because of the things that are going in the world, or you can retreat and not engage with the train, with the change, and let it fester and be angry and bitter and all that sort of thing, and not lean into God. And it's what she said, this Avila, right? Change is inevitable. What did she say? Did I put that away? I guess I did, yeah. So, yeah. What she said is that let nothing disturb you. Let nothing upset you. Everything changes. God alone is unchanging. With patience, all things are possible. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone is enough. Let's pray. Dear God, you alone are enough in the midst of radical change and of things that help us grow. Help us to lean into you so that our growth is perfected by you. Thank you for this time together, and until we meet again, keep us in your grace. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so hey, thanks for joining me this morning, and I pray God's richest blessings on you, and we will meet again tomorrow. Take care. Bye.